I felt like everything in your journey has just been kind of just one small step of something that maybe God has called you to. And so I just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Are you good with sharing that?
Yes. So actually, just like you said, all of those small pieces are exactly like what has happened. Like I've just taken these small steps like in my relationship with God. So I'll kind of start from the beginning. I've always been a Christian, I guess. So I grew up in the church.
Hold on. We're not starting yet.
Hold on. I was like, you all can roll. Yeah, Austin and I were like, all right, we're going.
I thought we had to do the intro.
I mean, I don't know. We've done it in the past after and then cut it in, but yeah.
Okay. So we've done multiple things.
This is all in the podcast.
I do not know what's happening.
We've done multiple things in trying to figure out the right flow of a podcast.
Okay. Right.
We have an intro, and we tried to go away from the intro at one point, and it just didn't feel right. And so that's why I was like, okay, let me do the intro, and then you can start.
Okay.
But
whatever you want.
now it's sounding like I just messed it all up. So
the rest of the conversation is going to be off.
Yeah.
We are live right now.
Yeah. So if this doesn't work out, it's my fault. Okay.
Your fault, not
just
mine.
So you know. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Are we ready?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone, to the Palm Valley Church Podcast, where we invite God into everyday conversations. My name is Mark Grohocky, and today I'm so excited because we have like a special guest here today. Today, we have JC Alvarez Carrillo. JC, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
I probably didn't pronounce your name that well, so
It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
You're an amazing member just here at Palm Valley Church. So, you're not a staff member, so I'm not paying you to be here or anything else.
Here on my own time.
Yeah, exactly. But I came across, I know you serve on our worship team and that, but I didn't know you. I'm still getting to know you. But I came across you because I had saw on Facebook that you have a podcast.
Yes,
You started
I
a
do.
podcast. And I was like, wait a minute, I recognize this name. I know she's at our church. So I started listening to your podcast and
all of the episodes.
That's right. I've listened to all the episodes. You said I'm hoping your family starts to listen to your episodes. Maybe they'll at least listen to this one. So, but I was intrigued. I enjoyed the podcast. I thought you had great things to say. And so I thought, why not come join our podcast?
Thank you.
And so hopefully today, I think they will be inspired somewhat by your story. And then hopefully maybe you'll get some people that are following your podcast and that too. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we start? How long have you been at Palm Valley Church?
So I've been only at Palm Valley for a year.
Okay.
Now, actually, September was a year.
Oh.
And I knew that because I'd written a Facebook post about finding Palm Valley and how amazing it was. So I was like, oh, it's a year.
So how did you find us? Were you new to town? How did you come across Palm Valley?
So I had only been in Goodyear for a few months, actually. I had moved here, and then I moved here with my husband, and then 2 months after that, he was deployed, and then he left. And so we had tried a couple of churches before he had left, but it was really difficult to try and do all of that right before he was leaving. So I decided that I was going to find a church for us while he was gone. And I couldn't not just be here and not be in a church. I knew I was going to need that for sure.
Well, why? Why do you say that? Why do you say, well, I needed to get connected. I couldn't do this thing alone.
So I grew up in the church. And my parents always emphasized the importance of being in a church and being with other believers and fellowshipping and stuff like that. And so when I was in college, I kind of decided that didn't really matter. I was still a part of a Christian fellowship, and I was still leading Bible studies, and I was still on worship teams and stuff like that. But for some reason, I just decided, oh, well, church doesn't matter. And then I started kind of just doing my own thing, falling into sin and not, listening to what God wanted for me. And, I'm still in college, but so this was like the first 2 years or even 3 years. The third year was my journey.
Sure.
Through that. And so I decided I was going to do my own thing. I didn't want to go to church. And I was living in Flagstaff at the time. And I knew everyone at the there's only a few churches. So I knew everyone that I saw there. I'd see them throughout the week. And I was like, I don't want to see them another day.
Yeah.
Okay. I see them all the time. I don't want to see them another day. And, but because I was doing that and because I was, turning away from God and following my own thing.
Sure.
I didn't have that accountability. I didn't have anyone to go to. And so when I moved here and the first 2 months that my husband was here, like things were really hard, even with us. And then the stress of him leaving and then he left. And then the stress got even bigger and
Right.
I was alone. I didn't know anyone. My family's 2 hours away in Tucson, but I mean, they're not there in my daily life.
Sure.
So I didn't have anyone. I didn't have any type of community. I didn't know anyone here. I've never lived in Phoenix. And so I knew that I needed to find a church and I needed to find community and I needed to join a Bible study. I needed people.
Yeah.
I needed it so bad.
You were feeling isolated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And this is one thing I think that happened on purpose. I think like the enemy was purposefully like hitting me because I was already alone here to begin with. And when I started going to Palm Valley, I was a Christian and I believed in Jesus and I believed in God, and I wouldn't say that I didn't, but I started to doubt him. I started to have sort of this crisis of faith and I had all these questions, and it started when I found the church. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I am grateful that I found the church. I think that was the reason why I found Palm Valley. And I had actually tried like 10 churches before this.
Yeah.
10 on my own,
Yeah.
church hopping. And that was so hard. And it was really discouraging to not find one where I felt at home. And so I could have easily just have given up on that. And, but I just kept fighting and I kept pushing and I kept coming on Sundays trying to find a church. And I don't know why I looked at this church last.
Sure.
I don't know why, because one of my girlfriends, she is a military spouse as well.
Okay.
And she had told me about this church, but I don't know why. I never came and tried it. And so finally I asked her, okay, what church do you go to again?
Sure.
I'm tired of church hopping. And so she told me Palm Valley. I came to the Goodyear campus and I started going, and then I immediately plugged into a small group. Immediately, I needed people.
Yeah.
So, and I think I went probably like the next Sunday to our small group meeting, and I felt so loved. I felt so welcomed. I cried to them the first night I'd met all of them.
Sure.
And I just cried to them, and I was telling them everything, and I was just so grateful for them. So, and it's crazy, and I'm in the same small group a year later.
Yeah.
So, wild.
Yeah, it is. I love hearing kind of this almost path and journey of you recognizing in your life, I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling isolated. Something's not right. And I have the power to do something about it. And then once you did, it wasn't just a matter of showing up to church. It was literally, but I need these close relationships as well.
Yeah.
And there was almost relief. You felt relief in that.
For sure. Yeah, that was the most important for me because prior, I had never realized the importance of relationships with God's people. I had never realized the importance of it. And I guess before, in the ministry that I was in before, I did feel a little bit ostracized in a way. I didn't feel fully welcomed. So it was something completely brand new. And maybe that's why it pushed me away. I don't blame anyone, and maybe I should have tried harder, but it was a different feeling when I showed up to the church and when I showed up to the small group. It was a totally new feeling that they cared about me and they cared about my husband as well, who wasn't even here at the time. And so
how did you know that this small group cared for you, these people? You said you felt loved and accepted and it was so great. So what did they do? What did that look like?
Yeah, so wow, like I'm feeling really emotional talking about this. It's kind of crazy. I didn't think that I would. But, well, because my husband is gone and it was the summer and I didn't have any friends, I didn't have that many things to do.
Yeah.
And so I showed up to small group early. Sorry.
No reason to apologize.
I showed up to our small group early, and like I was so grateful that they like allowed me to come in early.
Sure.
And just like sit there and talk with me. I appreciated that because I was parked there in front of their house for like 15 minutes. I was so early.
Yeah.
I was like 30 minutes early. And I was so grateful that they let me in just to get to know them because I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have any friends, no family, or my husband.
Yeah.
So it was just really sweet of them. And then just them listening to me and hearing my story. And then throughout small group too, and then our prayer requests as well, them just hearing me. And I think the biggest part for me was that they cared about my husband who wasn't there.
Yeah.
They prayed for him and they asked me about him. And beforehand, I had never had anyone in the church actually do that, because we were long distance.
Sure.
And the friends that I had prior, they didn't ask me about him at all. And they didn't pray for him. You know, he's in the military and he deploys a lot.
Right.
So that meant a lot to me that they cared about his safety. They, cared about his well-being emotionally and spiritually.
Right.
Just the first night. You know what I mean? So, sorry,
No, you're good.
That's so emotional.
I think it's an emotional thing. I mean, to come from this place of being isolated and wondering, do I have to do all of this alone?
Thank you.
And then finding a place, a community that says, no, actually, you don't have to do it alone.
Exactly.
We're actually going to walk through it with you. Yeah. And whatever you are concerned with, we are concerned with as well. And so obviously concerned with your husband.
Exactly.
So the group is as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it felt, I'm assuming, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but somewhat like family, somewhat like, okay, this is starting to be comfortable and normal.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely family.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful for that feeling of family because I've been away from home. This is going on my 4th year, and me and my family is super close. So it is really hard being away from them and then being in this city that isn't a college town. You can't just walk around and see people that just on the street or, at the store that you're going to.
Right.
And so that was really wonderful to feel that. And then, so in September, like I had told you in the beginning, I had started to have that crisis of faith, but I didn't share that. I didn't share that with my small group, but I kept going.
Yeah.
But I didn't share it with them. I didn't tell them what was going on. And I was kind of on and off going to church.
Sure.
Because I was having this, I just didn't have the desire because I had all these questions about God and these doubts about God. I didn't have that desire to go to church.
Right.
But I wanted the community part of it. So I kept going to small group, and I didn't tell them what was really going on inside and internally.
Yeah.
And I was struggling. And my marriage was really struggling, during that deployment time as well.
Because how long have you been married when your husband first deployed there?
A few months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had married in March, and then he left in July.
Oh, wow.
So, and then even when we got married in March, we still didn't live together after that because I was in Flagstaff and he was here.
Sure.
So, adjusting to a new
very
marriage,
difficult, yeah.
adjusting to being in a new city, and I'm struggling emotionally, and he's struggling emotionally. Right. So there's all that going on, but I wasn't reading my Bible, and I wasn't praying. So this is where we're getting to that part of how that has helped me, right? And so September started that crisis of faith. And then January came, and my husband was about to come home. I sat down, and I made New Year's resolutions. And for the people who knock them, I'm just going to tell you, they saved me, okay? I'm just going to say that. Like, I have never actually believed in them or doing them or, writing them down. I'm like, no one actually follows through. But I wrote down, okay, I need to start reading my Bible. And I wrote down my lifelong dream of going on a missions trip. I was like, I need to make it happen.
Yeah.
I need to start reading my Bible. I need to make it happen. And so I wrote him down, but I wasn't really doing anything about it yet. And
this is still in the middle kind of this crisis of faith. You still have questions at this point, too.
Yeah. I'm doubting God. I'm like, I don't know. Is this the God that I thought I knew? For some reason, something had changed in me, and I thought that the God I knew was someone different now. And I was like, do I want to follow this God? Is that really who he is?
Yeah.
And so finally, I told my small group what was going on, briefly, not in depth, but I had told them, can you pray for me? I'm struggling. I have these questions, and I'm kind of doubting God right now.
Yeah.
And Pastor Zach, actually, so he is my small group leader.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget what he told me in that time. And this is what changed everything. He said, well, are you going to the source? And I was like, what do you mean, am I going to the source?
Yeah.
Well, are you going to God, the source of all of your questions, the source of all of the answers, and so I thought about that question, and no, I wasn't going to the source with my questions, with my doubts.
Sure.
And so it's so interesting that we just finished the series of Conversations with God, the Ask, Seek, and Knock.
Right.
I wasn't asking God. I wasn't seeking God. I wasn't knocking, but I was expecting answers. I was expecting to find God. I was expecting the doors to open, but I wasn't doing anything to get there. I wasn't working with God. And so Zach said that. I'll never forget it. Shout out to Zach. He's awesome. And so immediately after that, I started reading my Bible every morning for an hour. And I started praying, even though I didn't want to, right? Because when your spirit's not right and in that place, you don't really want to.
Right.
But once you start, you never want to stop.
Yeah.
So I knew I just had to get to that place of starting. And so I started on the Route 66 1-year plan. And I was kind of falling off of it. And then I would stop altogether. And I was like, okay, this isn't, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of plan, so I needed to make my own. So I made my own plan, and I decided, okay, I'm not going to try and read this in a year.
Yeah.
I'm going to just start from the shortest book to the longest book.
Very nice. Yeah.
So then I don't feel discouraged.
Right.
And I'm proud of myself for finishing one book in one day, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Or in 2 days. And so I've been doing that ever since. And I have not fallen off of my plan.
Yeah.
So I started praying and reading my Bible for an hour every morning. I just had to make it happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, and so during January and that time, all this is happening. My husband got back, and for like 5 months, things were just like not good. I was doing all of that though. I was doing all of it.
Right.
Because I had started in January.
You were still taking these steps even though you didn't see results per se.
Yeah, I was like crying out to God.
Yeah.
I was like, literally crying and asking him to take this away. It was just like, it was so hard. Now we're adjusting to something new.
Right.
To being together and to him getting back from deployment. And it was really hard for like 5 months. And I realized I needed to focus on myself and not focus on him changing, not trying to change him, not trying to change anything about whatever he's going through, whatever he's dealing with, but I needed to focus on myself and my relationship with God and growing that.
Right.
And so, and just like you said, I kept pushing and I kept going on, even though I wasn't seeing results in a way. But it was awesome because during that time, God had been speaking to me and changing so many things inside of me, and then convicting me of a lot of things that aren't necessarily in the Bible and might be a different conviction from yours, but he was speaking so plainly to me. And
what I love about, I don't even mean to cut you off, but what I love about that I'm hoping people are hearing is you were at this crisis of faith, not even sure if you're believing in God, but you took some simple practical steps of, I'm going to read and I'm going to pray, I'm going to seek, and I'm just going to find out what's happening. And instead of getting discouraged, you all of a sudden are at this point going, well, I'm hearing from God. Things aren't going well. I'm still frustrated. I'm struggling with some relationships, marriage, and whatever else. But you literally said the phrase, but I was hearing from God. He was starting to speak to me. And so this crisis of faith is getting smaller and smaller and like less of a voice all of a sudden in your life.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even though there's still struggles going on. I love that.
Sure.
You didn't use your struggles as an excuse to say, well, obviously God doesn't exist.
No, I had to find out more about God. I'd realized I would read like one verse a day, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But because of my questions and my doubts, I needed to dig in there and figure out who he was. I needed to read about his character. I needed to read about his story and Jesus' story and figure out, okay, who is this God? Because I know that he's out there because of all of my past experiences and the way that he's showed up in my life in the past. So I knew he was there. I just needed to know whether I wanted to follow him. And I know it sounds kind of bad, but I needed to know why I was following him. And so just like you said, like the crisis of faith was getting smaller and my own faith was growing, even in the midst of us struggling badly. And then I don't even know when this happened, but all of a sudden it just stopped. After 5 months, 6 months, it stopped. Like it was done. Like the problems were not problems anymore. It was so weird. But I don't think it was just a sudden stop. I think it was that work that I had taken those 5 months of me working and listening to God and listening to the things that I needed to work on and change. And it was small things. It was small things that I had never even thought about. God asked me to change the books that I was reading. I mean, it could be something as small as that. I mean, you have to listen to God. And I told God, I can't change the books that I'm reading. I love those books. I love reading about murder and all of, mystery books. I'm like, I've been reading those since I was in high school, even middle school. And I told God, like, I can't stop doing that. What are you talking about? And I knew that I had to listen. I knew that I had to listen. And I never thought I could do it. But now I'm reading more than ever. I'm reading Christian books, inspired by God. And I'm reading more books than I ever have, and I'm enjoying it more than I ever have. So it's crazy when you take those small little steps and you think you can't do it or you don't want to because of what you want and what you personally enjoy. But obviously God knows what's best for you, right? I didn't know I would end up enjoying those books way much more. And I don't know what was going on, but I know that by listening, God was working in my soul. And so
it was as if your focus was not on God. And so he just started to almost bring to light, hey, I want you to work on this in your own life. Not that any of those things in and of themselves are bad.
No,
but they
not
were
at all.
purely just taking your focus away from him. And so he just asked, just change your focus to me. And you did. And all of a sudden you realized, wow, when my focus is on him, it changes everything.
Exactly.
That's huge.
And I had also went on the mission trip to Haiti. And this was even through my crisis of faith and even through struggling. And I mean, I was reading my Bible and stuff, but this was during the work time. And I decided to go anyways. I decided to go in 5 minutes. I didn't ask my husband. I didn't talk with him about it. I was like, I'm going. I don't have class Tuesday nights, so I can go to our classes. I'm going on the missions trip. And so that was also very helpful. I guess just being obedient. Being obedient to what God wanted me to do, even through struggling in my marriage and even through doubting and even through having those questions. And so it's crazy to look at where I was in January and to see where I am now.
Because we're talking, this was January of this year.
January of this year. And it's insane to see where I am now just because I feel like I'm in the best place that I've ever been, and I don't want to turn back.
Right.
I keep telling God, I'm like, I just don't want to do anything without you anymore.
Right.
I don't want to ever be in that place that I was, where I was questioning and doubting and not reading my Bible and not praying. I don't ever want to be in that place again.
Right.
And I'm just
but
in
it
a
sounds
great
like
place now.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're not working really hard at avoiding that place. You're just making sure you focus on God.
Exactly.
And it seems like you're noticing, wow, when my focus is on him, I don't have to worry about the doubts or anything else. I don't even need to think about those things because I know the direction I'm going. I know the God that I'm following.
Yes, and even then with the questions, like you said, I'm not focusing on them. I don't even think all of them have been answered.
Right.
A lot of them have. Some of them have. I mean, honestly, once I started reading my Bible and praying, I kind of forgot about all the questions that I had.
Interesting.
I don't think that God's going to give us all the answers
Yeah.
to all of our questions, but it is interesting how once I started reading, I was in God's presence every day. I forgot about all of my questions, and honestly, they stopped mattering.
Wow, that's
after
big.
that, so.
That's a huge statement in that. So you started this podcast then in the midst of this year as well. I mean,
Yes.
what maybe led you to that?
So my podcast is titled Why Not Me? And
That's right. If anybody wants to go listen, go search Why Not Me.
shout out
Yeah.
to my own podcast. I had been listening to podcasts for maybe 2 years before starting it, and the podcasts were what were really helpful for me during this time. Because I was alone, I needed to be listening to things while I was in my apartment just because I was alone.
Yeah.
And so, you're not hearing voices. You're just all by yourself. And so I needed to hear voices.
Sure.
But I wanted to hear things that were going to be life-giving. So I started listening to all these different podcasts. And I don't know when the idea popped into my head, but I just decided I wanted to start one. I needed something fun to do, and I love to talk. And I just thought that it would be a great way to share parts of my story. Like you were saying, you kind of heard it casually a little bit here and there. And so I wanted to share parts of my story, and I wanted to get other people on to interviews so that I can bring that encouragement to other people because I know how helpful it was for me when I was struggling but then listening to these podcasts and life-giving podcasts and how what it did for me and how it changed things while I was alone. And so I really wanted to just create it for the people who needed it and also for fun, and then just a way to be able to talk about my faith. I think right now you get into that place where your faith is unshakable, and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And you just can't help but want to talk about it. You can't help but want to share it. And so I want to bring life with God, So everyday life and just bring it with God. And I love to talk. So it's perfect.
Would you say has there been anything that maybe God has taught you since you've started this podcast?
Yeah. Let me try to think. I mean, there is for sure. I guess just that God makes us qualified. So sometimes I really do feel like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm not like Austin, who has all this gear, all this fancy gear.
None of us are like Austin.
Yeah. Or, the editing skills and all of that. And sometimes I will step back and start asking myself, who am I to talk about God? And I don't know everything. And who am I to even try to talk to an audience? I don't know everything. I don't have the best gear, this and that. I'm not, I don't have a huge following, all of that. And it just doesn't matter. None of that matters, because even if one person gets touched, that's all that's important.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, definitely. Kind of, I wrestle with that on and off, and God constantly has to remind me of that He calls us, even though we are unqualified, He makes us qualified.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. And to be honest, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on our podcast was, I think it seems like you are using your voice that God has given you so well, and in such a way that is powerful and impactful. And so, I mean, it's part of the conversations we want to have here on this podcast of making sure that we all understand God has given us all a voice, that He is, that we're to reflect Him in everything that we do and say, and in every outlet that we can. And so I, in listening to your podcast, I think you do such a great job of that, of being able to share your personal story. And then you've invited others on to share their stories as well. Whether it's, I know you've had some other military wives on and things like that, which are unbelievably fantastic to be able to highlight, some of what life looks like for military spouses in every way. But then you just shared this story of, this is what life has looked like. This is what my questions have looked like. So I think it's very powerful. I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
And I hope people heard just some power things from you today, because I know there's such great things in just some of your statements of your story here today of your journey with God and how it's still going. So what, as we close here, what would you maybe say to the person right now that may have lots of questions, that's struggling in their relationship with God right now? I mean, what would be your encouragement to them?
There'd probably be a few things. I would say, start reading your Bible even though you don't want to, even though it's hard. Start praying, ask, seek, and knock, because God will answer. And even though it's hard. So even though you don't want to, sometimes you need to get up and you need to do it. And that's difficult, but that's why I want to bring this other piece into it. You need to find a community of believers who are going to speak life into you, because I think that is what kept me in line almost, and they're the ones who gave me the advice, and because I kept going, I kept hearing truth.
Yeah. Because
if I would have isolated myself, not praying, not reading my Bible, not having that community, I wouldn't have heard anything life-giving. I wouldn't have heard any truth. So I would say those three things, for sure. They need to all work together.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. Well, thank you so much, JC, for joining us today. Hopefully, maybe we'll have you on again someday. Because it's, like I said, I love hearing your story. I love hearing what you're doing. And the podcast is Why Not Me, right?
Yes, Why Not Me.
Okay, so make sure you guys search for it. Take a look at that. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And we want to thank everyone for joining us here as well. So we want to connect with you online through our YouTube channel and all of our other wonderful outlets. Otherwise, we will see you on the weekend. Have a great week, everyone. See, they're more concerned about making sure the intro is funny than the actual.
I love the intros. The intros are funny. I like them a lot.
He could care less about the content of the rest of it, as long as the intro is funny. I gotta be honest, I didn't get the last intro.
I didn't either.
Ryan.
It was bad because there's nothing else. Literally everything you said were like, don't put that in the intro. Don't put that in the intro.
I mean, when Pastor Ryan's dropping F-bombs, I mean, we can't put that stuff in there, so.